Well, what do we have here? The CDC admits droplets from a sneeze could spread Ebola. Well, CDC, thank you, and it's about time. This article is from the New York Times from October 29th in reference to a disclosure from the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, in the USA from October 28th, 2014. Yeah, let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you now straight from the headquarters of the Top Cat's Pride is presented the unusual but factual and oftentimes controversial Wow News, featuring various international reports that will inform you and keep you in the know while you're on the go. And now, your Wild News reporter, Q. Pate. Welcome to the Wild News Report. My name is Otis Q. Pate, and I would prefer if you call me Q. My friends call me Q. The CDC, the Center for Disease and Control, in the United States of America, recently released information pertaining to the Ebola virus, the deadly Ebola virus, and that document, that publication, contains some startling, very surprising, and I would say, well, may I use the word flabbergasting? Well, I'll use that word, flabbergasting news about how the Ebola virus can, in fact, be contracted. Once again, this was from the New York Times. This article went on to say the Ebola virus is a lot easier to catch than the health officials have admitted, and it can be contracted by contact with a doorknob contaminated by a sneeze from an infected person an hour or more before they could be infected, said Dr. Meryl Nass. Dr. Meryl Nass, first name Meryl, M-E-R-Y-L, last name Nass, N-A-S-S, of the Institute for Public Accuracy in Washington, D.C. Nass pointed to a poster the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention quietly released on its website, saying the deadly virus can be spread through droplets. And some of you might have heard or seen the article that was from the CDC in October, when they in fact put the information up for publication internationally, and then for some reason it was taken down. However, I encourage you to see the video on this channel called the Ebola Virus Intelligence 4.0, and that would detail many facts for you. It's a full in-depth report for you. Furthermore, droplets spread happens when germs travel inside the droplets that are coughed or sneezed from a sick person enter the eyes, the nose, mouth of another person. The CDC said it doesn't spread at all by air. Then on Friday they came out with this poster that's being described, and they admitted that the particles or droplets may land on objects such as doorknobs, and that Ebola can be transmitted that way. Dr. Rosi Hassad, a professor of epidemiology at Mercer College, said droplets could remain active for a day. The droplets that come from a sneeze or a cough can remain active for a day. A shorter duration for dry surfaces like a table or doorknob, and longer durations in a moist, damp environment is what Dr. Rossi Hassad said. And Dr. Rossi Hassad contacted the CDC for further information, and they did not respond to his request.
We did a report today. The journalist who just landed in Nebraska contracted Ebola, and in our report we stated that there was apparently no recollection of any contact with bodily fluids. Now, of course, the CDC is reporting that contact with bodily fluids of an infected Ebola patient is the only way that you can contract Ebola. But with that revelation, and now the concerns that are being raised out of West African nations, out of those doctors, I've received reports, unconfirmed, that Ebola is in fact airborne. I know this is a very terrifying consideration, but being a doctor, what have you heard with that regard?
I have confirmed information from the United States Army Research Institute for Infectious Diseases. Those are the same people who helped develop 8 separate patents that the United States government holds on Ebola and its genetic sequence. And Gary, make no mistake, this is a weaponized virus. That same institute published a special report, which I have analyzed and published on my website. The information from the U.S. Army Research Institute for Infectious Diseases, the same folks who helped generate 8 patents that the United States government holds on the Ebola virus, a weaponized organism, and they say that the airborne transmission of Ebola is real. It is airborne by droplet transmission in the same way that influenza is transmitted, that it is more likely, not less likely, to be airborne transmitted in colder climates. Why? Because the sunlight and the humidity is bad for the stability and the longevity of the Ebola virus. But in colder climates, this very, very, very durable virus remains infective on surfaces. It remains infective even after it's freeze-dried. This is a very hardy virus, and it loves cold weather. So in the season that the Northern Hemisphere is moving into, winter, where there will be more cold weather, and where droplets and sneezing and talking and coughing will spread the Ebola virus, we're going to have a very, very, very bad situation, but it's worse than that. You see, with influenza, the only way you can be infected is through your respiratory tract. If an influenza droplet lands on your hand, it has no impact on your body unless you lick it or somehow get it into your respiratory tract. That is not true with Ebola. Ebola, a weaponized organism, can penetrate any cell in your body. So if an airborne droplet landed on your hand, it could penetrate the skin and get into the cells and the bloodstream that way. If it landed on your eye or your cheek or whatever. Now, there's another piece of that, and that the research done by the U.S. Army Research Institute on Infectious Diseases shows clearly that when it is aerosolized, and the United States government spent several $1 million on a laboratory device to aerosolize it, to study this. When it is aerosolized and you take it into your respiratory tract, it is far more deadly than if you get it through your skin or your eyes or some other surface contact method of transmission. That's when the death toll reaches and exceeds 90%.
Again, I would like to encourage everyone to look at the video, take some time and see the video, Ebola Virus Intelligence 4.0, which is on this channel, as well as be sure to remember, just because the mainstream media is not proliferating and constantly bombarding us here in the public about the Ebola virus disease, that does not mean that the emergency or the seriousness of the disease no longer exists. Being vigilant, being prudent, being intelligent, protecting yourself, educating yourself, just to name a few things in these matters, is always epic, is always paramount, and I would like to encourage that for everyone to do. Well, that's what I'm going to do. Well, this has been the Wild News Report. I look forward to you joining me next time here on the channel. The link for this article will be underneath this video in the description box. Check it out and pass it around, you know, to your friends, to your family. I'm sure they appreciate being in the know about this matter. Until next time, take care.
Wow.